Welcome back, viewers. You are still tuned in to Prime Live. And as promised, it is a Monday motivation with our resident motivation specialist, Jabu Zwane. Let's take a look.
Yes, good evening. Welcome to Monday Motivation. Yes, my name is Jabu Zwane. First of all, I want to apologize for my voice. Recovering a little bit from a long week of many speaking engagements with a touch of flu, but other than that, all is well. Well, this evening we're going to be speaking about the 7 R's of resilience. Resilience is a hot topic today, and one of the reasons why it's a hot topic is because so many people in the world are struggling with the difficulties that are increasing and increasing. As a matter of fact, the latest research states that mental health-related illnesses now are a #1 cause of death throughout the world. So people are feeling a tremendous amount of pressure. And that is why it is important that we have to sit down and talk about what are we going to do about the epidemic of mental health, but at the same time as well, what can we do to increase, to build, to create an ability within ourselves to become a bit more resilient. Now, developing a resilient mindset, first of all, we're going to describe what is a resilient mindset. A resilient mindset, these are categories of thinking that help you not only to overcome the obstacles that you are currently facing, but actually go as far as getting to a point where you are thriving, where you are also able to contribute to helping others. Obviously, when a person is going through this type of situation or we're going through difficult times, it's very difficult to think about other people. And yeah, it is important that you do that only if you are in a position to do so. You know, many of us, when we're traveling in the airplane, there is that specific announcement that says there's a mask that drops from the roof, and then they say to you, should you ever find in a situation where you need to put on a mask, put a mask on yourself first. Even when you're traveling with a child, don't start off with a child first, but rather start with you, and then you can put a mask on a child. And the question is that why is that an important announcement, and why is it framed that way? And that is because most of the time we tend to put other people that we care about first, and unfortunately, in a situation where it's a matter of life or death, it's more important that you put it on yourself first and then be able to help others. And that's part and parcel of thinking about resilience. Before we go into the 7 R's, let's think about why is it that so many of us are struggling with resilience. Number one, we are limited human beings. We've got a limited frames. We've spoken about this so many times in the show where we have said that we have 5 crucial human limitations. The fact that our human substance is so weak that we can get tired, we can get sick, we can get injured. And along with that as well, our capacity is limited. The second thing being our presence. The fact that we only know so much based on where we come from, based on what we have been exposed to, and as far as opportunities, as far as even things like access to infrastructure, like hospitals, education, that is a limitation. And the third thing, of course, is about our existence, that the moment that we are born, we are starting the process of our death. And as a result, we have to time things and have a right relationships in terms of time. And the fourth one being our consciousness, and that is our understanding. That is our knowledge. That is our experience, that we have a limited amount because our brains have a limited capacity to process information. And then, of course, lastly is about performance. And that is our ability then to take all of those aspects of our limitation and to channel them into abilities, into activities, to try and achieve whatever goals we want to achieve. And so we are all aware of how limited we are. And unfortunately, certain beliefs make it harder even for us to accept the fact that difficulties are part and parcel of life. And the moment you start to think that you should not be struggling, the moment you start to think that your particular case of struggle is a special case that requires special intervention, that requires a whole bigger amount of people or money or some kind of miraculous intervention, then you can start to feel defeated, start to feel weak, start to feel like you are a victim. And as a result, the moment you are in that space, you start to lose a little bit of hope. And that makes you far less resistance. What most of us have to understand is that, all of us in fact have to understand is that the moment your brain feels like you are losing and then you decide to quit, then it starts to give in itself. Think about it in this way. They say that most of the time, the moment that people retire, for example, and they're not as active as they used to be, then their life can quickly deteriorate, because they're kind of looking at life as if they've done what they needed to do and now they're just waiting for the grave. That's the same mindset. And so for us to cultivate a resilient mindset, there's 7 R's we got to think about. And the first one is to recognize. And to recognize the fact that troubles are part and parcel of life. The great Nelson Mandela once said, the victory of living lies not in not falling, but actually it lies in rising up after we fall. And one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible also says this, that a righteous man falls 7 times a day and gets right back up. So falling is a guarantee. A child falls and gets back up. For us to progress in life, we need to understand that it'll happen sometimes that we fall, that we fail, that we don't get things right, but we have to learn the art and science of being able to recover from that. And some of the ways that we can look at that is, look at your belief systems. In terms of your belief systems, what do you believe problems mean? When you're experiencing problems, what do you think they mean? Do you think they mean that there is some kind of a sinister power targeting you? Do you feel like it shouldn't be happening to you? It should be happening to other people? Do you get into the place where you start doing the comparison to say, but I've been struggling this long, this one has not been struggling at all? Because the moment you start to compare your life with other people, your struggles with other people's struggles, then it becomes harder for you to cultivate that mindset. And that's why part of the first step is that recognize, create that level of awareness that says, it is possible that even though I have not done necessarily anything wrong, even though I am a good person, it can happen that I'm experiencing trouble. Therefore, I need to be more ready to take care of, to tackle that. And the second thing is then reframing. We need to reframe the way that we think about difficulties. Many belief systems pass on or talk about difficulties as if it is a sinister occurrence in one's life. And people will go looking for interventions from the gurus, or they go looking for interventions from sangomas, or go look for intervention, even come to God to pray for God to remove the problems out of their lives. And then, of course, many of us can look at somebody who's going through a hard time and feel sorry for them and feel like, you know what, that should not be happening to them, like it's not fair. But the reality of the matter is that there is a consistent occurrence of unfairness, if you want to put it that way, that happens all throughout one's lives. And part of reframing is to acknowledge that problems can happen, and when they do happen, you have to be ready to tackle them. That you do that is then the next step, and the next step is that you need to then recover. So let's say, for example, you lose your job, or maybe you go through a divorce, or maybe you lose somebody that you care about, or somebody that you trusted betrays you in business. Somebody takes away your business. How do you then bounce back from that? Prepare yourself for that recovery. And part of that recovery is, what lessons have you learned from whatever has happened? Whether it was your fault or not, whether it was something that you didn't expect or not, one of the ways that we can recover from tough times is that there are always lessons for us to learn. What did you learn? Did you learn some things about yourself? For example, was there any due diligence that you could have done better? Let's say in a case where you got betrayed by a business partner. In case of losing your job, on your part, was there anything that you could have done to prevent that from happening? Maybe if you were a bit more experienced and there was an issue of retrenchment, you wouldn't have fallen for the axe. Or if it does happen that maybe you do get fired even though you're the most qualified person, develop some skills on how to promote yourself, on how to look for work, on how to communicate better, maybe if that is one of the challenges, on how to package your CV better if that is one of the challenges, on networking and connecting with the right people in different places if that is one of the challenges. There are always so many steps that one can be able to do to take a little bit of control in a situation. And in the recovery, that's a crucial C word, control. And control is in the fact that you can have total control on your situation, but is that don't lose control of everything else you have control over on account of things that you have no control on. Some people quit looking for work because the economy is weak. Some people quit trying and working harder because the company is not rewarding them the way that they should. But the sad reality about that is that then your chances are completely eliminated. So one of the things that you can ever do if you're going through a hard time is just simply give in and hand all the power over to the situation, because then that keeps you in that victim mindset. That keeps you in that survival mindset. That keeps you feeling weak. That keeps you not willing to tap into the inner strength that you may have and even reaching out for a higher power for you to get out of the situation. All right? And then the fourth thing that you're going to do is now to re-engage. And then re-engagement is where you integrate the lessons that you have learned, where you begin to build the new skills that you may have learned, where you begin to start to look at life differently now with an awareness that things can go wrong. And because things can go wrong, you can develop some kind of urgency about life. Maybe before you were not as urgent, you were not as aware, you maybe took certain things for granted. I personally have gone through some of these situations I'm talking about, from moving countries, to losing somebody that I cared about, to losing work, to losing business contracts, to actually losing a business altogether. And every single time, what has helped me to go through all of those situations is the fact that I was always quite intentional to sit down, to write down the lessons that I've learned. And in fact, what I actually do now is that any time that I'm beginning to experience trouble in my business, in my relationship, in any situation that is important to me, I start to be intentional in finding the lessons that I need to learn, that way to identify what is causing me to struggle and already help myself to be a little bit more stronger than I may actually be feeling at the moment. And that is part of re-engagement. You are not going to be able to solve some of the problems that you've encountered with the same way of thinking that brought you there. And that is why it's important to sit down and to write down the things that you have learned. Write down the skills that that you've picked up. Write down the experiences that you've picked up. I keep talking about the importance of creating a portfolio of evidence of your abilities, because one of the greatest causes of people not becoming resilient is that element of fear. And fear is always tied to a sense of feeling like you don't have enough ability to tackle your problems, to make use of your skills, to achieve what you want for yourself and for your family. Think about it. If you had the ability to overcome any situation and you knew that for sure, you wouldn't have a reason to be fearful. And so fear is tied to that. So it's important then to think about, what can I do to empower myself so that I don't stay in that state of fear and I don't let anxiety then run my life. And along with that part of re-engagement is that you have to make a very strong connection between the past and the future. What have you learned in the past? What future do you want to be able to cultivate for yourself? And how does that apply now in the present? Because unfortunately for most of us, we don't actually understand the importance of full engagement in the present, both based on those two timelines, based on what you've learned in the past and connecting that with what you want to be able to achieve in the future. Your future is not created tomorrow, but your future is created today. And so be 100% sure that what you're doing today is helpful towards your future. All right. And then the fifth thing is reinforcement. Now, reinforcing is that Once you started re-engaging, and then you realize that some of the strategies that you've put on are not working, you would probably have to reinforce them, but with your reinforcement, you have re-evaluated. And so these are happening at the same time, re-evaluation and reinforcement. And reinforcement is that you may have to add new skills, change a little bit of your mind around certain things, and then re-engage again with some of the strategies. And then the last thing, of course, is then to reach out. Reaching out is about looking for help. It's very difficult when you're going through a hard time to share with people, because maybe you're afraid that they're going to laugh at you, you're going to think that you've failed, you're kind of feeling a bit ashamed. But it is important that you surround yourself with people where you can be comfortable sharing about your difficulties so that you don't feel isolated, so you don't feel alone, and then you start, because loneliness can add to the mental stress whenever you're going through a hard time. And so having the right type of people around you that are supporting you, where you can share, that can also be able to refer help to you, that can be able to also get the word out in terms of what kind of help that you need, is very, very helpful for resilience. So the 7 R's, again, in terms of resilience, are crucial to help us to overcome the struggles that we are currently facing. I hope this was very helpful to you, and that from now on going forward, you're going to think about problems not as something exceptional, but as part and parcel of life, but also that you'll be far more prepared to tackle it. My name is Jabu Zwane. Thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your programming.